This was fixing to go downhill really quick. See if you can get you a listen on that. Welcome back to Tools and Tactics. We had a pretty cool interaction with somebody the other day. They had a Zinsco Sylvania GTE panel. I got to see the bus. Everything was fully intact, and you could actually see where the failure was about to happen. Usually when I see these, it's too late, they're melted, and it's hard to tell exactly what happened. This one paints a really good picture. These are a known hazard. They're installed from 1950 to 1970. They're in a bunch of houses still. If you have one of these, don't let this video scare you. Have an electrician evaluate it. It's recommended to replace these completely. Don't just try to replace certain components inside of them. The general is experiencing flickering lights and loss to some appliance power. Usually when we see these, you don't get to get the whole picture of what happened. This was just before the failure. So we've got some pitting on the bus. We've got some really cool markings, and should be a pretty cool video. So kick back and enjoy the video. You actually wouldn't get a reading on this because it's non-conductive anymore. It's not even able to make a connection. So yeah, that's awesome. So you can see the pitting, and then what happens is that pitting creates heat, and that pitting is actually oxidation. So if you put a multimeter on this right here, you would actually not get a reading. You actually wouldn't get a reading on this because it's non-conductive anymore. It's not even able to make a connection. So this was fixing to go downhill really quickly.
Worse.
Yeah. So once your bus gets damaged like this, it's all downhill. There's no way to repair that, because what happens is you would try to take a sandpaper to that to try to smooth it out. But underneath that, it's almost like a rust where it starts to oxidize and corrode. So it's never going to be the true thickness that these breakers are used to grabbing. It'll never be the same. There's nothing you can do for this. And this is the example of why you don't want these in your house. I'd rather have a Federal Pacific, and in fact, I've got a Federal Pacific in my garage that I watch, frequently. But it's only in my garage. It's not like it's powering my whole house. Yeah, so that's true. I do have a Federal in my garage. I know the statistics. 1 in 4 doesn't trip. The difference with this panel is that you don't have to have a fault in your system and then your breaker not trip. These are they're just bad. The connections are just bad in general, so they just create more heat, which you're going to see in this video creates oxidation and non-conductivity. So when you don't have conductivity, you get more heat, and then it's just compounding on each other, all downhill from there. With the Federal Pacific breaker, you have to have a fault first because the breaker's not going to trip. So what happens? You have a fault. Nothing gets cleared, the wire heats up and then causes your fire. So in short, unless you don't have a fault, you shouldn't have to worry about your Federal breakers. Now with this panel, it can just be doing its thing and have issues because it's always got a bad connection point where this is just constantly heating up and it's just waiting to fail. So that's why I still have a Federal in my garage. My main house has Square D and other brands and stuff, and these things already aren't acceptable anymore. So I can say what I want about these without having to worry about talking bad about certain brands. They're just bad news. So I just wanted to clarify that. And yeah, really, really cool though. I've been wanting to find one of these, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
See if you can get you a listen on that. You can see just how bad that bus is. You can hear it here. It's nice and smooth. And then you can see how rough it is there. Yeah, cool stuff.
Okay, that's cool to know.
Yeah, so for example,
and I didn't understand this A-B situation. So these are the same thing, A-B on those two?
Yeah. So this would be A and B, or this would be A and B, depending on how it's all wired up. And then certain breakers will only grab one of these at a time. If it's a 2-pole, it'll grab them both like that.
Yeah.
Where you grab them both. But a single pole is only going to grab one side. So you can see here, that's grabbing there. But then you might have some that grab in different spots. So Not all of them are going to grab the same bus. See, this one's grabbing up there. So this one was grabbing, we'll just call this B. We'll call this A phase. This one's grabbing A phase up here. So depending on what circuit was active, you would have one switches one switches the other.
That explains it.
Yeah.
One side is A, one side is B on those flickers.
Yeah.
And that explains why the only parts of the house. That was the one thing I never could understand. And I chalked that up to it being stuff that was furthest away from the box. But it wasn't necessarily furthest away from the box. It was just that the stuff that was furthest away from the box was on the B side, I guess.
On the B side, yeah, exactly. Pretty cool stuff. 60 amps. So you got 60 amps on A and 60 amps on B, which makes 120 total. So this breaker protects the bus. It's kind of crazy how they did things back then. So as you can see, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to electrical stuff. I think it's pretty cool. I did infrared for about 2 years and just a lot of testing and evaluating and things. So if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.